Hi, everybody. Welcome to week 6. We're nearly there of Seeds of Hope. Thank you so much. It's actually my turn up in front of you guys this week. And I was just explaining to the participants, I'm one of these presenters who I kind of go with the flow on the day as to what I feel I need to share. And, you know, so I've got a presentation deck, so I'll go through that with you, and I may not get through it all. I like to use my time for real engagement, a lot of interaction, and getting you guys up to talk and share as much as possible. So just a warning for those of you who've jumped on. What I'll do is I'll share my screen with my 4,000 tabs open. 1 second. Andrew, I noticed you just jumped on. How I've asked everybody else, so I'll just ask you while I'm pulling this up. How are you feeling about business at the moment? You've gone quiet. We can't hear you, Andrew, but that's all right. I'll share my screen now, and Andrew, feel free to type in or open your microphone whenever you need to. Why is that? Can everyone see my screen now?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so a little bit about me. Oh, good look, Andrew. Wearing your high vis.
What's the question, Tish? I missed that. I apologise.
That's all right. I said I was asking everybody how they're feeling in their business at the moment, the past week or few days.
Yeah, it's an interesting space, my little business at the moment, for a number of reasons, but mainly from an outside-in point of view, it's probably a political hot potato at the moment. So it fluctuates up and down. So yeah, it can be stressful, is the short answer.
Yeah. No, lots of, when it feels like there's so many outward influences, it can feel like you don't have a great deal of control and you're at the mercy of a lot of things. And I think a lot of the techniques that we've been taught in this series is sort of preparing and helping you understand and relinquish some of that control, and understanding that we don't actually need to control everything. In fact, there's a lot of beauty and healing and I guess transformation that can happen if you do try and let go of that control. And I know that's something that I've definitely dealt with in the past, and all it does is create stress. But a quick backstory for those who don't really know me: I run 2 businesses. So I have HOLGRO, but I also have Blue Clay, which is a video production and marketing agency. So I'm very much a visual storyteller. I'm also a former TV journalist and reporter. I established Blue Clay in 2010. As I've probably mentioned, I'm regional born and bred, and I created HOLGRO a couple of years ago, very still much in the startup phases, because in my own journey of running a small business, I understand how easy it can be to, I guess, fall into some really unhealthy habits, and the mental and physical impacts running a small business can have if we're not conscious and making really wise decisions to help us get through. And I think COVID's just sort of reinforced or shown and brought to light some of the areas in our lives where we may need to work on those things. I am big on strategy. One of the things that I see a lot of businesses do is chase their tail, whether it be in, you know, repeating mistakes, repeating kind of spending habits, which, you know, around sort of ad hoc spending on this and that, not having a strategy. And what that means is that they're actually chasing their tail. And this can quite often be the case when we've got cash flow issues. It feels like you're very much chasing your tail. You get to a good point and then all that money goes out again, and then you chasing people up to pay. So there's a lot of stress that can be involved with running a business. When we don't have a strategy, look, there's a few things that feed into why we don't and what happens if we don't. One can be a misalignment with your values and attracting people that work for you or as a client come in that don't necessarily align with you. Perhaps you don't understand marketing, you haven't considered your actual target market and who you want to work with. You may not be tracking your return on investment, and you may have confusing messaging and not standing by what it is that you really want to do, what your true purpose is, where that conflict of self can come in. And then obviously that overflows into an unclear why, which of course burns time and money. So we all know what that feels like. So today, what I'd like to cover, if I can get through it, if not, that's also fine. These slides will be available. There are a few considerations for strategy. One of these, as I said, are your personal values and how that really should overflow into your business and how you operate, the people you want to work with and for. The power of your limitations, which is where I'm going to focus today. I'm going to show you a really unique, cool tool that I was taught by my mentor a couple of years ago, and I sort of adapted it to then be able to use not only in unpacking what was going on for me, but being able to use in my marketing messaging. And this is a technique that I use when I'm creating marketing strategies for clients now. And if we get to it, your messaging and understanding your why. So the theme over the past few weeks has definitely been around values, understanding what's important to you, why it's important to you. And one thing that I think became clear, and I can't remember I think it may have been Marie Louise, your topic a couple of weeks ago, where we were talking about values, what's important to you, but also understanding what does that word look like in action. So for example, when we don't understand what our values are, or we have this preconceived idea that other people do understand what our values are, there can be a built up of miscommunication and resentment and judgment that builds up when they act out of alignment to your values. And what I mean by that is different people have different words attached. Different words mean different things to different people, is what I'm trying to say. So if my value statement came out and it said it was be brave, live with integrity, lead, tune in and lean in, be accountable, those words would mean different things to different people. So what's really a really good exercise to do when you're considering what your values are in your personal life and your professional life is, what do these words look like in practice? And I've even done this in relationships before, where I sit down and say, these are my values in a relationship. These are my deal breakers in a way. And this is what it means in action. Because what I realized is what honesty looks like for me may not mean the same thing for you. So understanding and articulating and being really clear with what your values are and why they're important and what your expectations are in terms of how you'd like to be treated, both in a professional and personal perspective, can be really, really helpful. For HOLGRO, they're our HOLGRO values, which I'm sure you've been reading. And for us, we put those up there as sort of terms of engagement on our platform. So we want to be able to attract, and we're really clear on the types of people that we want to attract on the platform, because we want to create a safe network where people know that they've got value aligned people in their community, and that creates that safety and trust that we're wanting to build towards. And you know, we're really transparent about that. This is where I want to spend the bulk of the day, which is the power of limitations. I believe there's purpose in our problems, and there's gold in our problems, or what we perceive as problems or limitations. And that's what I want to be able to unpack with you today. I guess a lot of the work up until today has been around dissecting what's going on for us, our thoughts, our emotions, how they're impacting our bodies, the choices we're making, all of those sorts of things. But underneath all of that, there's a whole range of subconscious patterns that may be running. And sometimes we're triggered without even understanding why we're triggered. And quite often we're triggered in our professional life. And it's not necessarily anything to do with a professional trigger. It's a reflection of a pain or a wound that needs healing from our personal lives some time ago. Now, I was taught this, this little process a few years ago, so I'm by no means saying it's mine. But what I've done is adapted it, like I said earlier, I've adapted it to be able for people to be able to use it in their marketing, and I'll explain how I do it. So the basis of this is naming your limitation or your problem, understanding what emotions that raises in you. How do you feel in that moment, or when you feel what you feel when it's happening, and what thoughts does that bring up? And then what we want to do is be able to unpack that a little bit further. So the best way for me to demonstrate this in action is to have a little volunteer. Does anyone want to be my volunteer in this exercise? No, please.
I can, babe. Yeah, perfect.
Thank you. Oh, Andrew, were you about to volunteer?
Go back.
Andrew, you're on mute, Andrew.
I waited a long time before I was going to put my hand up.
Do you want to do it?
No, someone beat me.
No, Marie's fine. Do you want to do it, Marie? Oh, you're on mute as well, honey.
No, Andrew, you're a legend. Go nuts. And you're all right. You can, no? You got this.
All right. Okay, so what you can unpack at the moment is something that is a limitation or a problem either in your business or in your own personal life at the moment. So what's the first thing that comes up for you?
How long you got this? This is unfair on me because you know all the answers.
I don't know all the answers. If I knew, no, that's not true. You don't listen to me anyway, but no.
What's the limitation? Management, understanding our business. There you go.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit. Management, what do you mean?
I've got a couple of business partners that only understand one side of the business and not the second side of it.
Okay. So what's the first side and second side?
So we're a construction business. So there's a sales and marketing and administration component, and then there's a construction component. They don't understand. They're very good in the construction side of things, but they don't understand the other side of the business.
Okay. And you do?
Yep, I understand both sides.
Okay. So how does it make you feel that they don't understand these things?
Angry, frustrated, annoyed, all of those words you can keep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what thoughts come up for you when you think about how those things in how they don't understand it and it's creating that frustration? What actual thoughts are going through your mind as those emotions come up?
That they are stupid.
Yeah.
That's it. Pretty one singular thought.
Okay. So to unpack that limitation and that problem a little bit further, by them not understanding the business on both sides, what problems or limitations is that creating?
Well, right now it's creating a massive problem because these two guys want to close that other side of the business down.
Mm-hmm. So what does that mean?
Well, they're of the opinion that the people that work in the air conditioner and the heater areas, so where they sit underneath the roof and have a rest and drink coffee all day, we don't need them, and we just need the people that are out on the tools. Okay,
so there's a big differing of opinion there.
Yes, big difference.
And where do you think those differing of opinions comes from?
Lack of knowledge.
So when you think about that aspect, the lack of knowledge that they have and the differing of opinion, how does that, what emotions does that bring up?
All the same ones again.
Same ones again? Yep.
Angry, frustrated, just, yeah.
So with this differing of opinion and the lack of knowledge, what's the result of that from a limitation perspective?
Ultimately, it's going to stifle our business. The tail of the dog can't waggle unless other things get done before it. So I look at it or from a dog point of view and go, okay, we've got to win the work, we've got to prepare the work, and then the tail can wag, e.g. the construction can be done, and that would be a perfect flow through type situation, but I don't seem to be able to communicate that clearly to them.
Okay. All right. So what I'm hearing is that there's not a great deal of team anything really going on, that you're not being heard. How does it make you feel that you're not experiencing that team and the business is being affected?
It's frustrating because it's what I've poured my life into for the last 12 years. And the results of the business are starting to flow through because of this attitude towards that side of the business. So, look, I can keep banging my head against a wall and keep trying to be heard, or I can just let it play out and pick my battles.
Okay, so it's creating a fair bit of stress for you by the sounds of it.
Yes and no. I use everyone that's been on this Seeds of Hope thing. I use a lot of those techniques, the breathing techniques, exercise, eating well, all of these things that you've been speaking about for the last month or so. I just use them techniques, and you say your bit and you get on with it, I suppose.
Yeah.
I try not to hang on to it, so to speak. Otherwise, it would stress me out. It'd cook me.
Okay, so you've learned to deal with your stress. Does it concern you, like, apart from being angry? Because anger is usually, for many, a indicator that there's loss, that there's a pain there. So if we dig into those emotions, peel apart or away that anger and frustration and what's underlying there.
Disappointment, probably. I have a really large or a long history with my business partners, so yeah, it's probably disappointment because I can see the potential in our business, and I just don't think they know what they're talking about. So my opinion at the moment, Tish, is that I let it go, and it'll die a slow death. And then I can say at the end of it, told you.
So I told you so. So what benefit will there be to be able to say, I told you so?
Oh, none. It's like immature, but it won't be on my head when it does sink.
So why won't it be on your head?
Because I've tried to intervene time and time again. Guys, we've got to focus on the whole picture, not just half of the picture. Come on, let's focus on both sides of the coin, so to speak. Otherwise, we're cutting our nose off to spite our face. Oh, and then it just goes it falls on deaf ears. So what it does, it actually does a couple of things. It makes me angry, makes me frustrated, but it also inspires me. Hey, maybe I need to jump out and do this on my own.
Okay.
Are we in a psych session, Tish? I feel weird.
Yeah.
No, you'll see this piece together at the end, hopefully at the end. So I'm inspired to do this alone.
Yeah.
If you think about I'm inspired to do this alone, what emotions does that bring up?
Oh, there's heaps there. Obviously, excitement, caution, nervousness, and anxiety. A lot of those type of emotions pop up, but sort of got to push them aside and just get on with it.
Okay. Sorry, I'll just write these down so everybody can see what's happening. So if we look at the limitations or the problems that you're talking about, there's a lack of understanding with the business partners and a real lack of team, it seems, where you don't feel like you're being heard. You're seeing that affecting your sales and that sort of the mechanics of the business. There's an immaturity and that you are scared of doing that yourself and going out by yourself to start again. And the emotions that that's bringing up are things like anger, frustrations, and annoyance, disappointment. But on the other end of that, there's a little bit of excitement there for you with the idea of being able to go out there by yourself. Cautious, nerves, anxiety that come with that. The thoughts are, they are stupid. I can see the potential, they can't. If I let it go, the business will die a slow death and I will be able to say, I told you so. On the flip side of this is that you're inspired to do it alone, but you push a lot of things aside and just sort of keep going. How does it feel to hear those things regurgitated back to you?
Oh, it's a slap in the face a little bit, but it's reality.
What do you mean it's a slap in?
Oh, well, no one wants to be in this situation. You don't. I mean, in a perfect world, you jump into business, small business, you work hard, you have some ups and downs along the way, but you're looking for consistency across the board and you succeed. Everyone wants to succeed in small business. And when that doesn't happen, it's hard to swallow because it's a failure partially on your behalf. So, and then when you have someone independent and you know in depth the issues that I'm having, when you have someone independent saying, regurgitating that back to you, it can be quite confronting.
How do you feel when you talk about that confrontational feeling of failure? What does failure feel like to you?
That's a good question. I can identify it nowadays after some work that I've done in the past. It's a feeling in my stomach, so I can identify what that feels like. And then I can go back to, as an example, one of the earlier ladies, that breathing exercises and things like that allow me to process that and move forward.
So your breathing changes and those sorts of things.
Well, I changed my breathing to be able to adapt to, there's a feeling in my body at the moment. And now my body's saying, hey, do this and it'll feel better.
Yeah. When we look at that limitation or problem of you're not being heard, that there is that divide of the team and the differing of opinions, how does it feel when you aren't being heard?
For a long time, I would spit the dummy out, Tish, and jump up and down and have a tantrum. It doesn't work. So I put my thoughts forward. If it's not listened to, it's not listened to, and then I just move on to the next thing.
So that's actions and reactions. I'm asking for when you aren't heard and you're not being listened to, whether it be in this situation with these people or otherwise, what emotions come up when you don't feel like someone's listening to you, when you're not being heard and seen properly?
Oh, same again, anger, frustration.
Yeah. So with your permission, I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into that, because this is where the real gold comes in understanding these triggers and these reactions and the emotional responses that we're having. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Thank you for being a team player. So
yeah.
if you come back to, not being heard to and the way that makes you feel, what thoughts come up when you aren't being heard and listened to?
Oh, you feel worthless. Feel like a piece of crap. And that's a really, if you continue down that road, that's a deep hole.
Why is that?
Because if you keep feeling like a piece of crap, then eventually you'll start believing it.
So you don't, do you think I don't want to think I'm a piece of crap? Like what thoughts go?
I don't anymore, but a long time ago, I would have taken it personally, would have stewed on it. Then it flows through to your personal life, then it flows through to your family. So you need to be able to have these stopgaps in place to be able to, all these techniques, all these teachings that you've been running for the last month, you need to be able to understand these things so you can put something in place so you don't fall into that big hole.
So the slide before this, I said there's gold in our limitations. And what I mean by that is if we understand when we're triggered why that's happening, we have this opportunity to be able to be really grateful for those people or person or whatever it is or situation showing us and triggering us, and being able to heal it. Because at the end of the day, whenever we're triggered, it's actually showing us where we need to heal. And it's an opportunity to grow and learn and to create a different response. Because yes, we can deal with our emotions, or we can have these responses where we're able to get ourselves back in check quickly. But to be able to dive into that and really explore it and heal it, that's where that gold is. And the reason I'm bringing this up as part of the marketing and messaging conversation is you also, not only do you need to understand yourself and how you are in business and how it overflows in your personal life, but you need to understand that you're working with other people who are going through their own shit, that they are having all sorts of emotions and thoughts behind their limitations and problems, where you may fall into being a solution in one of or several of those areas. So if we dive into that feeling of not feeling heard, that feeling of worthlessness, what's your earliest memory of feeling like that?
What's my earliest? I don't know. I went to boarding school, so probably boarding school.
So not being heard at school?
Probably.
By teachers or being separated from your parents?
It's probably a bit of both. Probably a bit of both.
So not having that trust there with adults that you can confide in and feel safe, do you think?
Yeah, like I said, I went to boarding school when I was 11, so it was that's the day you grow up.
Yeah. You've got kids, obviously. When you think about what they were like and are like at 11 versus how you were at 11, how does that feel to know when you look at them at 11 years of age and go, holy crap, I was in boarding school full time completely by myself at that age?
Yeah, they're babies. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. What would I say about that? It stunts what I would call emotional intelligence that you could probably learn more from being with your family and your parents, especially where I went to school. So when you strip this back and unpack it, it's probably why those situations trigger me. And you're right. From our triggers, we can learn some strengths or some ways to be stronger in those areas. But yeah.
So
it's like yeah.
There'll be method in my man.
There will be when I talk to you in an hour on the phone.
Hey, there was no gun to your head. You can stop at any point and not share. If you're not feeling comfortable sharing, then, by all means.
No. I'm an open book with it nowadays, Tish. I wouldn't have shared 3 years ago. I would imagine I would have said time out. But yeah, 100%. It's everything goes back to those formative years, and as I said at the beginning, I've done some work around this, and there are some gaps for me based on going to boarding school and being able to understand those particular things. So yeah, they're pretty strong triggers for me.
When you think about what's happening in the workplace with not being heard, that unknown of what's going to happen, that lack of control that you have, can you see the parallels with your experiences at boarding school and the emotions that happened then in terms of that lack of trust and safety and feeling disconnected from like people you could feel safe with?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course I can. Absolutely. But it's not an ideal thing to say, but there also comes a time where you've got to put your big boy pants on and suck it up. And yeah, look, this is just one of those scenarios. The three of us don't get along anymore. We're all in really different places in our life. Whereas 12 years ago, we were all in the same place. So we're all on the same page. So, for me and maintaining a healthy lifestyle, some of these things you've just got to cop on the chin and move forward. Don't buy into it. You've said your bit. It's not a personal attack. Move forward. Because ultimately, our business's success will be based on the decisions that the three of us make, or in some cases, the two of them make, and that'll be the result.
How does that make you feel?
Oh, Tish used to annoy me to no end. Oh my God. And I've been down that path. You go home, you're stressed, you're going to have a beer, and then you have 9. And rinse and repeat the next day. So for me, and the work that I've done, it's been about understanding exactly what you said before, those triggers, and then doing some healthy things to be able to respond to them versus unhealthy things. But it doesn't worry me anymore because, to be honest, it'll be what it'll be. Quite literally, I can't change it.
So can I ask you a question then? If it doesn't worry you anymore, why was it the first limitation and problem that you brought up?
It was probably the biggest one. But that's a good point. You backed me into a corner. Well played, Laticia. Yeah, look, yeah, that's a great question. It probably is because I've had a lot of things stripped away from me in the recent past, and it's the only thing I'm sort of hanging on to.
Okay. So I'm hanging on to this because it's all I have left?
Yeah, 100%.
So there's grief there by the sounds of it.
Well, no one died, but yep.
It's a loss. You've lost, you said you've lost everything else. So therefore you're holding on to this. So there's that grief and loss. That's the undercurrent of emotion that is basically forcing you to stay institutionalized in a third part life boarding school. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, this is boarding school again, and you're trapped in it, but this time you're choosing to be there as opposed to boarding school where you didn't really have a choice.
Yeah, 100%. Someone just wrote something around financial security as well. Absolutely. I'm uneducated and I have no qualifications and degrees and all that kind of stuff. So, and I've built this business just on hard work, and it's a pretty successful business. So yeah, there is a financial aspect to it as well, because when it does sink, and it will, I don't have many strings to my bow. And I know you and I have had that conversation, Tish, but from just a financial point of view, yeah, there's some security there around that. But yeah, I suppose there's some grief there, yeah. That's a fair comment.
Yeah. So the reason I wanted to walk you through this little exercise is it can be a great way of unpacking, and you have to really push yourself and you have to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And to be honest, I could go even deeper with you on this, but one, I don't feel it's appropriate, and two, you know, I want to be able to start putting this in context for you for this whole exercise. But when we're faced with those things in our business or in our life, they're there to show us where we need to go back to, and I guess accept, acknowledge, and honor what those things are. So those feelings that you had from being a baby in boarding school to having those losses in your adult life, being able to verbalize that and go, oh, actually, that's what I'm sad about. Under the anger and frustration, it's the lack of ability to control me being in a second boarding school of the second time in my life. But I'm choosing to stay here for all of these thoughts. And like I said, I can send you a screenshot of this and you can sort of sit there and look over it a little bit more. But when you get it down on paper, first getting it out of you, especially through writing, is very cathartic and energetically very healing. But you're able to also start seeing the patterns and threads between those three things. And then what it'll enable you to do is see pathways and solutions out of that. Oh, well, I'm saying there's no team. Am I being a team when I think these things or have these emotions? I feel I'm not being heard, but am I listening? Sales are being they're being immature. Am I being immature because I wasn't provided that emotional intelligence in boarding school. So you can
You're
start
probably-
a set.
You're
I'm not saying
probably
those things are
100%.
true, but yeah.
I know you're probably 100% right, Tish. Yeah, maybe I am being those things as well.
Yeah. And look, they're things that, you know, I can keep going on this session with you after, but, you know, getting this down and doing the process when things come up, as I said, it starts showing you, oh, hold on, this is the big picture down on paper. It's not that Joe said something really stupid and he's an effing moron and, you know, he's the muppet, he's wrong and I'm right. That's superficial, surface level stuff. We got to dive into what the actual limitation is in that scenario, because it's nothing to do with them. They're just being little showpieces to help you get to the bottom of what's really happening for you. And the reason I wanted to do this exercise is, this is a really good exercise for everyone to do whenever anything comes up, especially if you're not understanding where it's coming up. And I challenge you, even if you do feel like you understand where that trigger is coming from, do the exercise anyway, because if you do it well and you keep diving in and keep going until you literally can't dig anymore, you'll be surprised with often what comes up, because what you thought the reason for a trigger is, maybe it's changed, or maybe you can go deeper now because you're in a place in your emotional, spiritual life where you can go deeper. You feel safe to go deeper. You've got the tools right now with the breathing, the meditations and all of those sorts of things to allow yourself to go deeper. So you've got more in your back pocket. You might not be as overwhelmed with things. And why this is so important is your own personal growth. But it also helps you understand who it is that you want to work with, the kind of clients you want to attract, but, you know, how you can actually talk to them. So for an example, if I was a business coach, which I'm not, but if I was, and I put myself in the shoes of an avatar like you, if I sat down and go, okay, well, here's Andrew. He's in his 40s. This is his situation. This is what his problem is. And these are the emotions it brings up, and these are his thoughts. If I was to create a bit of marketing content or start a conversation with you, I would be able to use this as an opportunity to talk to you. And I'm saying we do this as an exercise, as make believe. So you create these avatars quite often in marketing where, you know, Joe lives in Sydney, earns X amount, is in this industry, buys this beer. That's great, but it's very superficial avatar profiling. Where we're able to get really deep into our marketing, our messaging, is when we understand the limitations of problems of people, but how that makes them feel and the thoughts that conjures up. And this takes a fair bit of work to be able to do it for every single avatar or target market that you may have in your business. But being able to understand these feelings and thoughts and problems for people allows you to create that authentic conversation, connection through empathy. And this is where you can align your values and build that trust. And essentially their pain becomes a purpose, and you provide the unique solution to that purpose. Does that make sense? So if I was targeting Andrew, 40 from the Riverina, I know you're not 40, but let's go with 40.
Listen, you know full well how old I am.
I've forgotten. It just means I'm older.
You know you're not older.
No, older as in anyway, I know what I'm saying. You know, I would create a conversation piece, whether it be a social media post or whatever. Do you feel unheard in your business, that the management team there is no team in the management, you're not being heard, and it's affecting your sales, but you're scared of going out alone. Do you feel angry and frustrated and disappointed at this, but
So that's how
scared?
you link it up.
Yeah, and scared that you might lose your financial security. Are you thinking that if you let it go, then you'll have nothing to fall back on, and that you can't move on because you don't have what it takes? So therefore you feel like you have to hold on at blah, 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 business.
So marketers are really inside our head.
Yeah, it's psychological profiling, essentially. And I'm not saying that they do it right, because a lot of them lack the believe it or not, a lot of them lack the emotional maturity to be able to do it to the depths and authentic depths of what I'm proposing you can do this with.
You've been doing this to me for 10 years.
No, I know. Like I said, I only adapted this model from what I was doing in my own personal development and went, hold on, if I do this and this and this, and then I match this up with a solution for my marketing, hello, this would be, this is gold. This is essentially psychology profiling, but providing a solution. Because then what I do is say, okay, these are your limitations, emotions, and thoughts. I understand you. I hear you. And did you know that I have a unique solution to be able to help you address all of that? And because I can hear you and I understand your emotions, thoughts, and limitations, I'm immediately building trust with you because I get it. And there are two ways to use this. There's that you can use it to manipulate people to get the sale, but I don't think anyone who's jumped on HOLGRO is that person. Or you can use this to empower and genuinely help people because you're wanting to help people, and that's what you want to do in your business, or in your personal life and things like that. So it allows you to really dive into who am I here to serve and how am I here to do it? Does that make sense?
It does, Tish. I like it. It's all come full circle now. You and I will have to unpack this later. I have to jump out. I'm sorry, guys. I've had to call this short. I've just got an appointment I'm running a little bit late for, but it makes sense 100%, Tish, and I appreciate you doing the thing with me.
That's all right. I'll take a screenshot and send it to you, and you can have a bit of a play or call me later.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing and being the guinea pig.
Bye.
Bye. So how does everyone, I sort of had to rush the back end of that because you had to jump off, but how does everyone feel about that exercise that I did with Andrew, but how that can then be, I guess, overlapped with your marketing and messaging? Did you have any questions or feedback on that?
No, I thought it was really, it's an awesome way to pluck out not only the pain, but where that pain can then be utilized into something that is, I don't know, expansive and supportive and all of those things that understanding our why is. And that's really cool. I really like
that. And there's a lot of marketing that is negative led, and it makes people scared. I mean, if you look at insurance, it's all about selling people fear. But what if you could understand their fear, but offer them a really transformative solution that is going to help them? And that's where I think the point of difference is, and the opportunity for people in their messaging is to say, hey, I don't need to buy into this scaring kind of approach with marketing. I can take a very empathetic approach, and I can show that I care and show up by showing people that I understand what they're going through and showing them how I'm offering a unique solution. Did anyone have any questions about that?
I probably, Laticia, Simone, I probably got a little bit lost at the end, but not having I guess, customers as such. It's, to me, I look at those things more from a staff point of view, who are the people I put around us as a team. But I probably got a little bit lost in, I was following the problem, the emotion, the thoughts, and how they all linked together. And I guess then how as an individual you can look at that objectively and the triggers, and then how you react and how you change that, like how you change your view of that triangle, I guess, where that limitation or problem is, and then your reaction and your thoughts. But then, yeah, how to, and I understand when you talk about making an avatar, but yeah, I'm not a marketer and don't have, I guess, customers as such. So it's probably then just getting into a bit of a different scope for me.
Who do you sell your grain to?
I don't have grain.
Well, so
yeah, so we just have a contract. So we only have one customer, and yeah, contract. We don't have a lot of options.
You don't have a lot of options, as in with clients or who you sell to?
Yeah. So fresh product. So yeah, just picked up, and there's only one local purchaser.
Okay, but we can still really quickly do this exercise for that one local purchaser that might help you understand this. So you don't have to name them by any means, but what is one of the limitations or problems that you know that this particular person or the industry as a whole in that space might have?
Well, our biggest issue from that perspective, being in agriculture, is we're 100% price takers.
No, so not the limitation for you, the limitation for your client.
Well, for them, it's quality of supply. So that they receive quality, consistency, and there is an element of transparency and trust required.
Sorry, just trying to figure out how I've spelled consistency wrong. Trust and what was the last word? Trust and
I forgot.
That's all right.
Sorry.
Trust and something or other. Yeah. So if you try and put yourself in their shoes, those agents or whoever it might be, and they're not just dealing with you as a farm, they're dealing with all these other farmers, and they might just be one cog in a big wheel.
Mm-hmm.
What emotions may they be feeling if they have to assure a quality supply, consistency, and have that trust and build that rapport, not only with you, but 1,000 other farmers when we're going through drought, COVID, all of those sorts of things, like all of those pressures? What kind of, and this is where your imagination starts to be able to kick in, when we can pull in that sort of empathetic skill. What kind of emotions do you think they'd be feeling?
If I put myself in their shoes, there's a level of probably anxiety in, dealing with a fresh product. It's, if they don't have it, then they can't supply it to their customers. Yeah, they'd be concerned, they'd be anxious, they'd be, potentially nervous if things aren't going, well on farm.
Yeah. So if you think about that, these are people too, right? Mm-hmm. If they start, and I'm going to do this really, really quick. Normally I dive really deeply into this, but let's do it as a really high level example. So them as individuals, if they're feeling anxiety and stress and concern that if they don't have it, I can't sell it. As an individual, do you think it's quite possible that then they start going into a loop where going, well, hold on, if I don't do this job well, I might lose my job. And if I lose my job, I can't pay my mortgage and I can't feed my kids, and I will have to move. I'll have to take them out of school. I'll have to, uproot them, and I'll be a bad parent. Like, that's a very extreme case, but people go on those story journeys, don't they? Like Brene Brown talks about catastrophizing.
Yes,
You know,
and fear of failure.
Yeah, and we always jump to the worst case scenario. So suddenly we've gone from, oh, they just want the best price and they're dictating to us the price, to being able to flip that and go, oh, hold on, in their individual situation, working for the man, they're probably under a fair bit of anxiety and concern, which could potentially be creating other issues in their personal life, which stems from a whole list of other stuff in their own private life. And this is where the intersect of private, personal and business life comes into it. Everyone wants to separate personal and business all the time, but there's so much overlap that we're not talking about and not recognizing, because we're all just focused. We've got our blinkers on and we're just thinking about us, which is fine. That's all we can control. We can't control the buyer or the client or the staff person. We can control what we're thinking, seeing, and doing. So challenging yourself, you know, to go, okay, well, if I'm dealing with this client or, you know, another buyer in the future, or I want to market, you want to market yourself to other agencies, you can put yourself in those shoes and say, as a buyer, is quality, supply, and consistency an issue? Does that create anxiety and concern for you, which then has flow-on thoughts that you're worried that you won't be able to have the product that you need to sell it, and that will create other issues in your business? At such and such farms, we pride ourselves in quality assurance and ensuring that we are consistent. We believe in creating trusting relationships, etc., etc. So you're talking to the emotions of the person and the thoughts that that may create, and you're providing a solution that helps them on a much, much deeper level than, oh yeah, we can supply you with some stuff, let me know your price. Do you know what I mean? Does that help?
Yeah, it does.
And I know yours is a little bit of a different situation, but you can still run the exercise.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I think the exercise has a place internally as well.
With your staff, yeah.
Yeah.
And relationships. It's
Yes.
great in relationships. That's where it becomes really fun. And look, this is, you have to be creative, not creative. You have to be able to sit and be willing to put yourself in the shoes of people that maybe you've never thought about before from that perspective, which can be really challenging. I know some clients really, really struggle to do this exercise with me. Others just knock it over because they are in the trenches emotionally with their clients. So they know exactly what they're thinking and feeling. So it's a really easy exercise for them to do. And, you know,
just if we can go back to where Andrew was, I think where Andrew was, I think he's underselling himself. If he's been running a business for 12 years, he's actually got a lot of skills that he could transfer. But all those things that he was worried about, limitation problems, interestingly, because we have a major CapEx project underway at the moment, and construction is, you know, and that's been a really big thing for me, is actually those construction businesses that A, can deliver a quality product, but B, that understand us, are looking to support us in making solutions, are taking that administrative burden away from me because it's not my skill set. So I'm looking for a business that will. So all those things that he's worried about in his business, like, I think he's right to be. And I think I made that comment. I think he's a really customer focused person because he wants to sell the whole solution and deliver the whole package, which is obviously where they're struggling at the moment. So I'm a customer that wants all those things.
So what you could do to flip this and use it in a different way, as a customer, do this exercise. What am I looking for? What are my problems and limitations? How does it make me feel to know that I might get ripped off? And what thoughts does it bring up that I might get ripped off? This might not happen on target or whatever. And then go and look for suppliers with a job brief and say, this is what I'm looking for. And this is how it weaves into those values at the very, very, very beginning. We understand what our values are, but this is the next stage of unpacking why we have those values, which we may not have realized we have them. why we have them. And further to that, then utilizing it to have and drive really engaged, authentic conversations with our staff, our partners, our clients, et cetera, or people we want to try and develop a working relationship with. So it's just deepening those connections even further. Does that all make sense?
Yep.
So from that, I'm just conscious of time, so I'll just quickly skim over this stuff. Is essentially people want to know that they can trust you. The best way to develop that trust, as I said before, is creating that authentic conversation and creating that connection with sincerity, not to manipulate or, you know, a lot of psychological profiling marketing has been done in the past to manipulate people and get them to do what they want to do in very, very unethical and amoral ways. If you look at, I've got the movie in mind, I can't think of it. Oh no, it's all about the story of how to sell cigarettes. It was about 10 years ago, but you know, it's really interesting the way they've been using this in the past. And, you know, using this technique, you can create stories with people for social media, share your why. Why did you start? Why are you doing what you do? Why do you get out of bed every day? What is the problem that you're uniquely solving? How will their life be different by trusting you? How are you unique and how are you do it? Like for Blue Clay, this is our 5-step process. And when you look into our 5-step process, each of these stages are articulated in what is our unique solution and how we do it. And that's unique to us. So how we do it is very clearly articulated to our clients. Then other areas that you might share your story with might be around the impact. You know, what kind of do you give back to charities? Do you volunteer? Do you use only local organic ingredients from local farmers? Do you provide local jobs? If so, to how many? Do you support the disability sector? So there's lots of ways to be able to articulate your values and attract the right type of people that you want to work with, not only from a client perspective, but if staff are, you know, potential staff or employees or contractors are following you on social media, for example, they go, oh, hold on, this is a company that resonates with me because of values. So if you're articulating your values and you're living it and you're writing it in every aspect of your professional, personal life, you're going to be able to attract the types of people that it is that you want to work with because you are putting it out there rather than being someone that you think you have to be because that's what social media and Facebook and Instagram said I had to be, or TikTok or whatever. There's so much shadow and so many veils being worn and masks being worn. I challenge people in their marketing to take that mask off and dive into themselves, but also dive into the problems of others. And that's where you're going to be able to create cut-through messaging, but you're also going to be being able to dive into who you are and feel really comfortable stepping into your power. As you say with Andrew, he's got this opportunity to own all of that and really step into his power. So that's essentially it. That's how I've gone from values, digging into your stuff and being able to turn it into marketing. And normally I'd do that over a couple of hours. So I know I went through it really fast, but I really wanted to be able to give you that top-down view of how one simple technique can not only help you from a personal development perspective, understanding your triggers and where that comes from, but how you can transform that into magic. So that's it. Did anyone have any questions? Feedback, thoughts? Thanks, Natalia. Oh, you're muted, Marie. I'm not sure.
That was really awesome. Thanks. It's perfect.
That's right.
So
Does that, so that helped, Marie, with you, like the kind of work that you do, you're dealing with a lot of people who I guess you do have to be very empathetic with and understand what they're experiencing on that front line.
Yeah, it's really good to have those pains highlighted in the first sentences in regards to doing the work that fundamentally drives me as a person, as you know, seeing people grow, seeing that inspiration rise, or any of those things. It really is important that they actually feel like they've been heard. And those couple of sentences of nutting out those, you know, the little voices as to, I suppose, how it is that I choose to do what I do, is that it really does, the messaging is really key in that, and letting them be heard with those pain points, which have been, that's when you become a great teacher around those things, because you've experienced all those pains yourself, you know. And I think it's really great cutting through the crap and expressing more of an authentic expression around that. And
yeah,
tools like what you've just shown are perfect for that. So yeah, it really does support the process. I love it.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'll upload this presentation in the portal as well, so you guys can mimic that. But I usually just hand draw that triangle because it allows that creative process to flow a little bit more. But yeah, thank you everybody for showing up. And I know I've gone over time, so I'm sorry for that, but thank you. And then we can jump on tomorrow and go through a couple more with you guys if you like, and actually either from a personal perspective or dive into some of your avatars and target markets and do some of that marketing fun. So thank you everyone, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks, Simone.